Okay, let's jump right in. Have you ever really stopped to think that everything you're experiencing, like right now, everything you see, hear, feel, isn't pure reality? Nope, it's all filtered. From the moment you open your eyes in the morning, your brain is running every single piece of information through this incredibly powerful, totally personal filter called perception. So, this brings up a huge question, right? Is any of what you see actually real? Well, the answer is kind of complicated. The physical world, yeah, that's out there, but the version of it that exists inside your mind, that is a completely unique construction. Think of it less like a perfect crystal clear photograph and more like a custom painting, one that's shaped and colored by your own internal filters. A really good way to think about it is like this. Your perception is like a pair of glasses you can never, ever take off. Everything you experience passes through this lens. It makes some details pop, it blurs others out, and it adds its own unique tint to the entire picture. So today, we're going to dig into how this very personal lens gets built, how it totally changes how you see yourself and other people, and the hidden process that makes the whole thing tick. So let's start by turning that lens inward, because before we can even begin to understand how we see the world, we've got to get a handle on how we see ourselves. I mean, how do we even build this incredibly complex story of me? Well, it all starts with your self-concept. This is basically the big picture answer to that giant question, who am I? It's a whole mix of your personal traits. Maybe you think of yourself as funny or shy or a leader, and your group identities, like being a student, a fan of a certain team, or part of a family. It's the fundamental blueprint for who you believe you are. But here's the thing, we don't just make a neutral list of our traits, we judge that list. And that's where self-esteem comes in. It's the emotional layer right on top of your self-concept. So it's the difference between saying, I'm a public speaker, and feeling, I'm a good public speaker. That judgment, that feeling about yourself, yep, that's your self-esteem. And check out how these things all work together in this powerful cycle. It kicks off with self-efficacy. That's your belief that you can actually do a specific thing, like, say, run a 5K. So when you train for and you actually finish that race, your self-efficacy for running shoots up. That success then gives your self-esteem a boost. You feel great about what you did. And that, in turn, strengthens your self-concept. You start to see yourself as a runner. See how that works? It's just a constant, powerful feedback loop. But this is where things can get, well, messy. We all have these different versions of ourselves floating around in our heads. And when the person we are doesn't quite line up with the person we think we should be, it creates this kind of internal tug of war. There's this fascinating idea called self-discrepancy theory that just breaks this down perfectly. So the theory breaks it down into 3 cells. First up, you've got your actual self. That's who you believe you are, right here, right now. Then there's your ideal self, the person you wish you were, your dream version. And finally, your ought self. This is the person you feel you should be, usually based on expectations from your parents, your friends, society, you name it. When your actual self falls short of your ideal self, you might feel disappointed. But when it falls short of your ought self, that's when you might feel guilt or anxiety. Okay, so we've looked inward. Now let's turn that same perception lens outward. How in the world do we size up other people so fast? Well, it turns out our brains are all about taking mental shortcuts. And, as you can probably guess, those shortcuts are absolutely filled with potential traps. We've all heard this saying a million times, and it is shockingly true. Our first impressions are incredibly powerful. And get this, research has shown that people can predict election outcomes with surprising accuracy just by looking at pictures of the candidates' faces for a tenth of a second. A tenth of a second. In that tiny sliver of time, we make these snap judgments about things like competence and character that are just incredibly hard to shake later on. So what matters more, the very first thing you learn about someone or the most recent? The surprising answer is, well, both. The primacy effect means that the initial information we get acts like a frame, and it colors everything that comes after it. But then you have the recency effect, which shows that our last interaction with someone can also have a huge impact, sometimes even overriding what we thought we knew about them. This leads us right into one of the biggest mental traps we all fall into. Just think about it. Someone cuts you off in traffic. What's your very first thought? It's probably something like, what a jerk, right? We immediately blame their character. That's an internal reason. We almost never stop to consider the situation, an external reason, like, hey, maybe they were rushing to the hospital. That tendency to jump to character flaws is the fundamental attribution error. But oh, when it's our turn, we completely flip the script. This is what's called the self-serving bias. If we ace the test, it's because I'm smart. totally internal. But if we fail, well, then it's because the test was unfair. That's external. It's a simple but really powerful bias. We give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, but we tend to judge other people a lot more harshly. And these first judgments we make create this powerful lens that can distort everything else. If our first impression of someone is good, the halo effect kicks in, and we're way more likely to see their future actions in a positive light. But if that first impression is negative, the horn effect takes over, and we're probably going to view everything they do through this negative, skeptical filter. So we've talked about how we see ourselves and how we see others. But what's the actual machinery inside our heads that's driving all of this? What's going on under the hood? It's actually a pretty simple but incredibly powerful three-step process that's running constantly, every single second of the day. It all boils down to these three steps: selection, organization, and interpretation. First, your brain has to select what tiny little slice of reality to even pay attention to. Next, it organizes that information into some kind of pattern. And finally, it interprets that pattern to give it meaning. Let's break them down real quick. Your brain literally can't process everything at once, so it has to pick and choose. It focuses on what's salient, basically what stands out. That might be something visually loud, like a flashing neon sign. It could be something that meets your needs. You know how you can suddenly hear your name spoken from across a noisy room? Or it could be something you're expecting, like hearing the mail truck pull up when you're waiting for a packet. So once your brain selects the information, it has to organize it, and fast. It does this using a few super simple rules. It groups things that are physically close together, that's proximity, things that look the same, that's similarity, and it's really good at noticing the one thing that's different from all the rest. Take a look at this image. Without any other information, your brain instantly, automatically, sees these men as a single group. But why? Simply because they're standing close to each other. That's the principle of proximity at work, a totally automatic, unconscious mental shortcut. And finally, we get to the interpretation stage. This is where we actually assign meaning to stuff. And we do it using what psychologists call schema. The best way to think of schema is like mental file folders. You've got a schema for a classroom, a first date, a doctor's office, and these files are packed with all your past experiences and knowledge, telling you how to act and what to expect in those situations. These schemata make your brain an unbelievable pattern recognition machine. And to prove it, I want you to try something. Just try reading the sentence on the next slide out loud. Ready? I'm willing to bet you read that almost perfectly, even though nearly every single word is misspelled. So how is that possible? Your brain wasn't reading it letter by letter, not at all. It just recognized the overall pattern of the sentence, pulled the right file from your schema, and filled in all the blanks for you. This is a perfect example of how perception is based on patterns. It's a conclusion your brain just jumps to without needing every single piece of information to be perfect. So, here's the bottom line. Your perception is an incredibly powerful, amazing tool, but it is not perfect. It's a filter. It's one that's been built over your entire life from your experiences, your biases, and all those mental shortcuts. It's what helps you navigate the world so efficiently. But, as we've seen, it can also seriously mislead you. Just being aware of this is the first huge step. Knowing that you have this filter, that your reality is, in a way, a construction, it gives you a choice. It means you can question your first impressions. You can challenge your own biases. You can make an effort to see the world from someone else's perspective. So I'll just leave you with this question. Knowing your brain has a filter, what will you choose to see differently?